we'll go to Troy.
Tony, I guess to get, Rackers and then Heflin back out there, what'd you see from them and kind of how good is it to have those kind of arms to put back into the mix?
Yeah, it was excellent. There wasn't a lot of room for error this weekend, so you'd like to spread the wealth a little bit that first weekend and kind of keep everybody fresh. But some of those guys weren't even available today, so we had to have those guys throw well, and they did. And we just talked in the outfield how it's open competition all year long, and there's some guys that made a statement tonight.
Hey guys, make sure your mics are muted after you ask your questions so there's no echo.
Tony, just how much growth have you seen from Jordan Beck over the past year? And I guess how nice has it been to kind of see him produce at the level he has through the first 4 games?
It's been awe-inspiring. I mean, I'm not saying he's our best hitter, but the guys all think he's different. And I don't know how good we are offensively, but I know we're pretty capable. There's some good hitters in there. So when there's one that kind of stands out, not just to the coaches, but to the guys that are older and have seen some really strong hitting in the teams we play and some strong performances from guys like Alaric or Andre, and they think he's different. And he's been gifted with a pretty physical body, but he's put in an awful lot of work in the cage and on the field and in the weight room to turn himself into what he is. And then naturally, I think he's just kind of matured. I heard him mention earlier, it's way different being a sophomore than it is a freshman, but he through relentless work ethic, he's made himself into what he is. And I'm just glad he's on our team.
All right, next we'll go to Ben and then Ryan and then Wes.
Coach, just with Jason, where was he before surgery in terms of his ability on the mound, and how far do you think he is behind from catching up to that point, and what does that process look like of getting back to that point?
Yeah, he was a good high school arm, and then in junior college, he kind of burst onto the scene because he had really grown into his body and his stuff had come on, and he was well talked about, but there was never really any consistency in his outings in front of scouts when they were seeing him. And it was tough to put an exact number on where he deserved to go in the rounds, or, what type of dollar figure was suitable for Jason. And a lot of that inconsistency was because that tendon was slowly tearing apart, and it never completely tore. But when Doc got in there and saw what he was working with, the surgery was needed last year. So he missed all last year with us. And I think he's picking up right where he left off as a JUCO recruit. He was recruited by North Carolina, us, many other schools, as a guy who was a potential weekend starter. And that's what he still is for us. I know he's a little sore tonight, and he's still not that too far off from that surgery. So we got to be sensitive to that. But he was recruited by several schools, including us, as a weekend starter possibility. And, every team in our league's got about 7 or 8 of those guys. So you roll with 3 each weekend, and those other guys need to scramble for the other innings, but you'd like to think they can fill a role somewhere if it's not one of those 3 spots.
Were you concerned with the 45 strikeouts on the first weekend? And if so, how encouraging was just 7 today in a game with a lot of at-bats?
Yeah, I wouldn't say concerned, because I've seen how our guys have, worked against our pitchers in scrimmages, and how they've been attentive when Coach Elander or the coaching staff will get into 2-strike stuff. And I think you look more at Georgia Southern's arms. We also had some at-bats that were incredible, some 11, 12 pitch at-bats, or at-bats where guys literally had balls hit off the handle down at Georgia Southern. So there should have been a few less. I think the ones that stuck out were the ones where guys just froze on balls literally right down the middle because they were overthinking those at-bats. I think there was 3 occasions, 3 of our better players, were caught doing that. So those are the ones that really bothered me and that needed to be addressed. But otherwise, cost of doing business when you're going up against a great staff and you're in ultra competitive games.
Still just 4 games in, but no Evan Russell in the starting lineup. What all has led to that?
Just soreness. Literally, Jordan Beck was talking earlier about how much extra work he's put in with Coach Elander. Some of those guys almost go to an extreme. We've got to tame down Connor Pavoloni and Drew Gilbert, and Evan Russell has swung himself into some soreness in his wrist. And it's kind of one of those things every time it feels better and we throw them back in the mix, it's 2 step forward, 1 step back. So really what we want to do is just get in the clear so we don't ever have to worry about it again. But he's had some tendonitis and soreness in his wrist just from over swinging, according to our medical staff. And I think that's something it's a blessing when you got to manage it with the hitters as a whole. But it's certainly a curse when it ends up keeping one of your guys from being in the lineup.
Tony, just sort of the culture and the chemistry inside of a clubhouse in college baseball has always been such an important thing. How tough was it, or was it tough in the past 12 months or so to kind of keep that vibe going? Because y'all were obviously trending in the direction you wanted to go in, and then kind of the world stopped for a while. Were you worried about that, and how did the guys handle it?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say worried, but I'm concerned about it even as I sit here right now because of the extra obstacles that are there. A few extra bodies are around. You got to, again, spread the wealth a little bit more as it relates to innings or at bats. And then just the normal celebration on the bus. I was on one of 2 buses Friday after we won our first game of the year, and it could not have been more quiet. And normally that's, as a coach, you got to step in and say, hey, you guys need to calm down. We got a game tomorrow. And I just think it was unique, and the kids don't know how to handle some of these situations. So last year we did have Garrett Crochet and Alaric were 2 very high picks. If you look at the numbers early on, those guys weren't massive contributors to our hot start. It was the team chemistry was our number one asset we had last year. And I think we still are finding our way. I mean, Xander Sechrist threw the heck out of the ball. That's probably the biggest move he's made towards being a part of this team because he's had a mask on. He's been in quarantine. We've never done the sit around Indian style and everybody say your name and where you're from and all that stuff like you do in kindergarten. So we're still making up ground in that area, and it's something I'm sensitive to. But we've got the character to have a really fun team and a really close-knit team like we had last year.
Yeah, I was going to ask you quickly about the playing time and the depth. I mean, that's kind of a good thing you want as a coach, but it also, maybe leads to some headaches. Did you have to have more conversations with guys going into the season about how that was going to be managed?
Yeah, more conversations, and then more thinking through things in the dugout, just as it relates to situations like tonight where, you could leave a guy on the mound or you could get the next guy some action. And my stomach's still kind of in knots about one, we'll just kind of leave it between the team, but kind of what to do with one guy, get him out there, or do you redshirt a guy, or you do. So I'm glad we won, but there's never going to be a perfect night at the field, especially with decision making. I think there were a few things that I messed up this last weekend, but our players were good enough and competitive enough. They made up for it. And then tonight, we were the better team, but you're always questioning what can you do a little bit better to help you that night, but also in the future.
We'll take a few more guys. We'll go with Troy, then Gustavo, then Mike to finish.
I think you mentioned earlier that you don't know if you're good offensively yet. I guess what would you like to see from those guys to feel better about that group going forward?
Yeah, no, I think we're good. I'll tell you what, it takes a lot for me to tell a group that they can swing it or something like that to that effect, or on the radio to say we can hit the ball a little bit. And we can do that. So I just don't know how good we are, relatively speaking. I think if you look at I didn't look at any scores. I just kind of heard rumblings that there were some mid-major wins. And then we go down to Georgia, and it wasn't University of, and it wasn't the ACC school. It was Georgia Southern. And I'm not so sure they couldn't fit right in with our conference this year with what they've got. So, and I'm not just hyping them up or complimenting them. It's all through college baseball. There's a ton of talent because of the draft being shrunken down last year and seniors coming back. And so I would say more how good are we compared to what else is out there? Our league's always a monster. It's going to be even more so. And then every team we play is going to be good in some aspect or another. Those guys hit the ball all over the park tonight that we played. So where do we really fit in offensively, I think, is the main question. But they've shown me a lot.
All right, Gustavo, and then Mike to finish.
Coach, take me to the bottom of the eighth. You guys scored 11 runs, something that you guys haven't done in like 2 years. What are your thoughts went to the bottom of the 8th inning. You guys kept competitive and scored 11 runs.
Just keep getting the next guy to the plate, that's the theme when you're down 3 or 4 runs, get the next guy so we can make a comeback. But for tonight, it was, there were some guys making their first college appearance, and it was just keep it rolling. So guys keep getting repetitions and getting plate appearances is what my thought was. And I think you saw some guys really relishing in the opportunity that they had to get up to bat and hit. I mean, a guy like Cortland Lawson, his first college at bat, clearly locked in. But also you saw some guys like Logan Steenstra, where it was not his first college at bat, but he needed 2 or 3 to just kind of settle down a little bit. And ultimately, I know you're talking about the end of the game, but that brings me back to the first inning. A guy like Kyle Booker was incredible. I mean, I was worried about his emotions running too high. He makes an incredible Sports Center catch in center field, and then probably hits a double or a triple, maybe even a home run if the wind is blowing differently in his first at bat. So, different guys handle those situations differently, but it's nice to get the first couple of repetitions out of the way.
Tony, obviously we didn't get to talk to you after the weekend, but what did you like about your trio of starters? And then with Leith, did you anticipate him going that long in a game, or was that just kind of a circumstantial thing?
Sure. They're all different. I mean, Chad Dallas, I like the way he competes, but what is the X factor is the way the guys compete around him. For whatever reason, they respond to him. I like the fact Blade Tidwell threw well enough to give us a chance to win, but he didn't throw nearly as well as he's capable of. And I love that Elijah Pleasance gave us a solid start, gave us a chance to win as well, but overcame adversity when we did not play very good defense behind him. So those 3 guys, even though, Chad could have went deeper into the game, everybody could have done something a little bit more, certainly gave us a lot to be excited about. And then also with Jackson Leith, I mean, he's a guy who's built to start. He could close, he could start. He's a swing man for us like he was last year. I think the fact that the fall wasn't available to him because of the tonsil thing, it made him better mentally, and he was able to work at some weaknesses. So I know he's a better pitcher than he was last year, but going in with that theme of not throwing a lot, we just decided to kind of keep him in that Swiss Army knife role to start our season. And then I believe it'll work itself out by SEC play, where exactly he fits in. And is it short outings or a long one like last weekend?
All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you on computer, at least.